be about leadership. Therefore, I will be putting on my management consulting jacket. That's better. Super corporate. Today, I would like to talk about mission clarity. What I mean by mission clarity is the importance of every single person on your team understanding the why behind your what. Every person on your team needs to understand not only what they are supposed to do, but also what the intended outcome of doing that is. Basically why you're doing things. So we're not talking about mission statements or anything fluffy like that. We're simply talking about leading with a clear what and why. Mission clarity is important in all organizations, but I'm going to make a case that it is especially important in software development, because in software development it's often very hard to tell whether a given task is going to be hard or easy. And quite often the software developer at the keyboard is going to be the only one who knows. This video is valuable to watch even if you don't technically have any subordinates. A lot of what I'm going to talk about today is inspired by the book Extreme Ownership. It's a book on leadership written by two Navy SEALs, which are now retired and work as management consultants. It's one of the most clear and on point books about leadership that I have ever read, and I super recommend it. I have linked it in the episode description. There are many lessons to learn from Extreme Ownership, but mission clarity is the one that I want to focus on today, because it's one that I feel very strongly about personally. It's one that I've had a lot of experience with in my workplaces, and I also feel that it is especially applicable to software development. The most important aspect about mission clarity is that everybody knows why you're doing something, not only what. In the book, they stress that the leader is responsible for making sure that everybody understands the what and the why of the plan and also believes in it. That is easy to say and hard to do. When you are a leader in an official capacity and you have actual subordinates which would probably be fired or at least reprimanded if they don't do what you say, then it is of course very tempting to actually make use of that power and just tell people what to do. Especially if you're having a bad day, you're tired, and the employee is asking in a very rude way. And that's a frustrating situation because you already know that the task is the right thing to do. You have done your homework. And not only that, you have already convinced a lot of other people higher up in the organization that it is the right thing to do, so that they have funded your project. Or if you're a startup, you have convinced investors. You have done all that work, now you just need the programmers to do it. It feels like explaining what to do should be enough. You shouldn't spend time explaining why to yet another group of people when the project is already as pressed for time as it is. However, in reality, if you do not manage to successfully convince your team about the why of your what, that is going to end up being a very costly mistake, and I'm going to tell you why. First, the motivation of your team is going to be reduced to basically not getting fired, but a much bigger problem is that your what, the tasks that you are delegating, your plan, is wrong. Or in more nicer terms, it's incomplete, non-perfect, it's flawed. I'm gonna talk about that, but let's talk about motivation first. In the last decades, there have been quite a bit of studies done on human motivation, and there is an overwhelming amount of evidence suggesting that external incentives such as money performs very badly at motivating humans to perform tasks that are complex and require lots of problem solving and creative thinking, like software development, for example. However, one thing that has been shown to motivate people in such situations is connectedness. Connectedness, it's often also labeled purpose in literature about this topic, is that you feel that your task and yourself is connected to a larger whole. The sense that you are a contributor to something greater that you are a part of. So if you want your team to be motivated beyond just performing their tasks and going home, then you need to convince them about the why behind what you're asking them to do. And you need that because your plan is wrong. So everybody has heard about the expression no battle plan survives contact with the enemy. So you have this nice and structured plan about what to do in the mission, but a landmine blows up half your squad, including your team leader, and you lose radio contact. Similar disconnects happen in software development too, it's just that you get delays instead of casualties. Let's imagine a small group of developers that they are given a task, but once they get into development a little, they realize that this task is going to be very, very complicated and risky to do inside of the system. And now we're getting to why mission clarity is so important in software development. You cannot really tell up front how hard a task is going to be. There's actually an XKCD comic that talks about exactly this. Person on the left says, when a user takes a photo, the app should check whether they're in a national park. Sure, easy GIS lookup, give me a few hours. And check whether the photo is of a bird. Oh, I'll need a research team and 5 years. And on the bottom it says, in computer science, it can be hard to explain the difference between the easy and the virtually impossible. And this comic is bang on. Well, it's actually outdated because it's now super easy to recognize birds in photos with Google's imaging machine learning libraries, but I think that only makes the point even further. And what is worse is that you often don't discover how hard things are until you are a bit into development. And let's imagine that that is just what happened to our group of developers that we talked about before. They have discovered a bit into the development process something that surprised them about how incredibly hard this was. It's something that both they and the leader thought was something that was very easy to do. However, the way things are looking now is that this is probably gonna be at least 100 times harder than the leader expects. It's just ludicrous. The developers know that we should probably do something else here because this doesn't seem cost effective. But since the developers don't really know why they are doing it, they are not able to figure that out on their own. And you might ask here, oh well, what's the problem? The developers can just bring this up with the leader or the customer and they will make a call. Well, first of all, the leader is a person, and they are not perfectly available. The developers might be working late at night, they might be in another time zone, the leader might be on sick leave, on an airplane, or they might just be busy in meetings with other teams. However, let's assume that the leader is available. Even then, the developers might not bring it up, because if you are the kind of leader who mainly deals in what and not with whys, you are going to, over time, end up with a team that is trained at not asking why. You have asked for this to get done and they are gonna do it. And again, you might ask, what's the problem? They will start doing it and the leader will see that the task takes a lot longer than expected and they are going to talk with the developers and course correct. Well, again, the leader is a person. If they manage a lot of projects or if they were distracted by this other crisis somewhere, they might simply not notice that some tasks that they had delegated took, that they expected to take 10 minutes took 3 days for 2 developers. But let's assume that the team does have an attentive leader and the team knows, the developers know that a sprawling time schedule would not go unnoticed. So think about this now. You have developers that feel like they cannot challenge the task and they want to deliver it within the given time frame, but they don't have enough time to do that. How do they solve that? You solve it with a hack. Hacking. You add tech debt. You do the software equivalent of duct tape and glue and sticks and gum. Of course, this tech debt, just like real debt, will end up adding lots bigger problems later down the line, but the most important thing at this point is that the task gets done, because that is what was asked of us to do. That was our objective. Going back and saying that we can't do this, that would be failure, because we only know the what, we don't know the why. And because all of this is culturally systemic, it will be repeated over and over and over again. And eventually, you will end up with a system that is so slow to develop in that it might as well not be moving at all. And like with all group psychology and cognitive bias, and you tend to fall into the trap and thinking that, yeah, this doesn't happen to me, this doesn't happen to us, this doesn't happen to adults. This possibly happens to junior developers and junior leadership. But don't fall into that trap. I have seen this happen with the best of leaders and the best of developers. What's really nasty about it is how easily and quickly it happens. It's just some meeting where a developer asks a leader about like why we're doing this, and the leader of the project, they're having a bad day, they didn't sleep so well, and their dog is at the vet, and they don't do a very good job at convincing the developer about the why of the task. And the developer is also having a bad day, and they don't want to feel like a nuisance to the leader, so they don't ask for clarification even though they don't understand why they're doing this. And you now have poison in your project. And this crap also worsens in an organization where you have multiple layers. Your leader might not be able to explain and convince you about why, because their leader had a bad day when they asked them. And it becomes this chain of disconnectedness and confusion, and which just breeds resentment in your organization. Ugh. So, in summary, invest time in Misson Clarity. I promise that it's going to be worth it. If you are in any kind of leadership situation, take the time to explain the why behind your directives and ask and encourage your team members to challenge you. And the responsibility also goes both ways. If you have a leader and you don't understand the why behind a task that you were given, then ask questions of your leader until you understand it. In some teams, this has gone so far that you might actually find yourself in a situation where you actually feel like you're not allowed to challenge the directives. And if your culture is like that, you should really try to bring that to the team or your manager in a constructive way and have a discussion about how can we solve this, because that is very destructive and harmful to the entire organization if you have a culture like that. And if you feel like you would be punished for bringing even that discussion to the table, then you should probably look at switching teams or even switching organization. Because you are valuable and you are loved and you deserve better. Misson Clarity, it's important, spend time on it. That's my opinion, but what are yours? Do you have an interesting story to tell about this? Do you have any reflections? Do you think I'm just full of bullshit? Please post a positive or negative comment down below. You have just watched an episode of Fun Function. I release these every Monday morning, 0800 GMT. But you will forget that and miss it! If you want an annoying notification when it gets released, there is a little bell next to the subscribe button in the YouTube app that you can press. If you do not want to wait that long, you can check out this episode that the YouTube Terminator Cyborg machine learning drones have picked out for your enjoyment. I am MPJ. Until next Monday morning, stay tuned.